All right. At the risk of being a little too scattered here, I just want to make sure that we get to one piece of this first. So, Danny, your online relationship is only with Junior, right? It's not with Shilo.
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, my
right.
relationship. Thanks for quantifying it that way.
Yeah. I was just going to say, because so you're supposed to DM Shilo if you are a defensive player who would like to jump into the portal and who is in the portal and wants to join Colorado. If you are an offensive player, you're supposed to contact Shadeur. There is a full Colorado coaching staff. There is a head coach who claims, by his own word, he's not hard to find. But as we've got some pretty massive exits, the message from Shilo Sanders saying defense transfers DM me, offense transfers DM Shadeur Sanders, with the addition of this not last chance you. Day one headlines. And then look, we're going to get to Cormani McClain. We're going to get to Savion Washington.
Is that a shot at Cormani?
What?
Is this is not last chance you thing a shot at Cormani?
Possibly.
After DM kind of called him out about, class and responsibilities and stuff, like going to class, not having class, but like
that's. I mean, it could have been. That's great context. So, what's Colorado going to do?
I'd love to be in those DMs. I'd love to see what's coming in.
So 24/7 Sports Carl Reed dropped a line yesterday, I believe, during their show. He said, I expect Colorado to be very active with offensive linemen in this portal window. And when
Heard
you
that
got
before.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. They lost Savion Washington yesterday, who is not a great player, but is certainly
it's their last starter. He started 9 games for them, and now we've got 0 returning starts from last year. They have 108 active starts because of other players that they've brought in terms of what they've done at previous schools. But then even you trace back like where those were and what level that was at, even for those 108 active starts that you have on the offensive line on this Colorado roster, the Big 12 is going to be a step up in competition for many of them.
Can we talk about the most important part of this? Bud, you hurt my feelings last night.
I did.
Yeah. 7:19 p.m. I send a tweet to the group thread from some Colorado account with a screenshot of the DM story on Instagram with I just say LOLOL. 7:21 p.m. Bud Elliott tweets that same screenshot with interesting strategy following today's liquidation of last year's Louis. You took it from the group text, but you didn't acknowledge the text. You just went straight to Twitter with it. Am I not good enough for a response?
Did you not appreciate my alliteration? Liquidation of last year's Louis?
Don't change the subject. You hurt my feelings, bud.
Hey,
you didn't even give me a thumbs up or anything. You just took that crap and went with it.
Not nice.
This is not surprising, though.
No.
I mean, you said Chip to start this off. I mean, Deion did this a year ago. He was like, yo, if you want to come, hit me up. He called it out. It's not surprising at all that they're doing this. I actually think it's probably a good idea. Like, why wouldn't you throw it out there? Because I think there's a lot of players that don't want to enter the portal that can just DM them, say, hey, what you got? What are you thinking? What can we do?
Yeah, I mean, it's going on anyway. Like,
right.
This is happening all the time. It's just they're actually posting it on their Instagram story.
I just wonder who's sifting through for them. Because I'm serious. Like, imagine how many players that aren't good are like, yeah, I'll come. Let's go. Where are we going?
I just want to imagine like Deion, Shilo, and Shadeur all sitting in a room watching tape on all these guys who sent DMs. Like, all right, boys, we're going to figure out which ones we want.
I mean, that is the like unfair assumption that I have right now, is that the brain trust of Colorado football is Deion and his 2 sons on the team, and that they are running a Big 12 program right now.
Yeah. I think this is one of the problems with the strategy of going portal only, is that it is very hard to get players who are good enough to play for you, who want to come and be backups in the portal. Most of the guys in the portal are going to want to go somewhere and start, unless you have a lot of NIL money. And Colorado does not have enough NIL money to entice good players to be backups. Now, I'm a guy that thinks Deion's only at Colorado for 2 seasons. So I am totally not one of these, what they're doing doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense if you frame it as he's only intending to be there for as long as his sons are going to be there. Which he hasn't said. That's just the way they are operating makes the most sense if you frame it from that lens. There's no long-term plan there that he has articulated, and the actions don't suggest any sort of long-term plan. But it'll be interesting to see. Like Savion Washington is a very nice backup in the Big 12. Like that's a kind of a nice guy to have, and now he's gone. So we'll see what they can get. I don't know.
Can we do the Cormani thing and then like pivot out of this? Because I don't want to just sit here for 10 minutes and just like, throw dirt here. It's just when we're sitting here and we're gathering all the pieces, and 24/7 Sports has done such a good job of being able to compile a lot of this information. I mean, Chris Hummer and Matt Zennis are just literal robots right now, just like plugged into the portal with like great insight, including, and we'll get to some of this in a little bit, understanding where some of these guys might go. But the Cormani McClain was one of the biggest splash signees for Colorado heading into Deion Sanders' first season. Somebody who had backed off of commitments to Miami and Florida during the winter cycle, pushed his commitment to February, commits to Colorado in January. But then, as Bud mentioned earlier, did not get great comments from Deion Sanders when reporters would ask, like, okay, so like, Travis Hunter's hurt. So like, are we going to see Cormani McClain? And for the most part, we did not see a lot of Cormani McClain. So now that Cormani McClain, if he's going to seek a home elsewhere, he carries with him that blue chip projection coming out of high school. How do we reevaluate him now? Because if he wasn't going to be a part of the program anyway for other reasons, then maybe not as much of a loss, and maybe not the same kind of star power at wherever he commits to next.
Yeah, I don't really want to put this all on Deion.
Right.
I think everybody expects me to be like the Deion hater just because I thought what they were doing last year was smoke and mirrors, and they went 1-8, which was the same record they had in 2022. But honestly, there were questions about Cormani's maturity beyond the questions we would have about the maturity of a normal 18, or he might be a 19-year-old coming out of high school. And it seems like those kind of came home to roost at Colorado. When Deion's calling you out for not handling your business, not going to class, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be a requirement pretty much anywhere. Like you do at least have to do the bare minimum. However, Cormani is still crazy talented, has not had any kind of injury that would hurt his talent. We've had guys be high NFL draft picks who literally had to sit out 2 seasons of college football because they were addicted to crack. Okay, so there's nothing that says that Cormani can't get his stuff together, start going to class, get a little wake-up call at wherever he goes next, right? And be the guy. Just probably needs to have a little more humility with it and just sort of start to work as more of a college football player needs to work. Whereas in high school, he got by just on being a ridiculous talent. And there certainly were some like warning signs. Okay, everybody got good laughs about all of Miami's staff showing up to his high school and then him pulling the okey doke and not being there and like not telling him, So like that's funny, but there also is a little.
But it's also a red flag. Like
yes, right, exactly. So yeah, man, I have high hopes for him long term as long as he just kind of gets the mindset right. But there are a lot of guys that went in the portal yesterday who I was like, okay, I know multiple staffs have passed on this kid, not Cormani. Like Cormani's a guy whose ability is so nuts, you kind of just have to keep going after him. But like there are guys who were in that 4-star range, including some from his area. I knew good staffs, but like I don't want that kid in my locker room. Like that's just not the kind of habits I want to bring into this program. And now they're in the portal.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Deion holding a player accountable.
No.
So what will be interesting is to see where he ends up, because like Bud, you mentioned there were questions about the maturity issues before he got to Colorado. Deion calling him out publicly is only going to make that more of a public information. So it will be interesting to see what schools are willing to take a chance on him, or if none of the top kind of, the kind of programs you would expect to want a talent like Cormani McClain, if they don't go after him. I think that'll be very telling and see where he ends up.
I think this is where there's a disconnect with Deion's, brand and image versus the reality of what he is. And I think this is what haters, and I don't think Bud and I think we've been probably, positioned as the biggest haters, at least on social media. I think
the most
we're just
correct,
trying to,
by the way.
Right.
Like,
But I think like we're trying to get the reality of the situation. Like I think the hype, when you see so much hype and there's not much substance, I think that's what bothers us. But as far as Deion, the football coach, I think the perception from the outside is he's all about flash, paying players, let's go through the portal. But on a day-to-day basis, I think he's an old school football coach. I think he coaches them hard. I think he has good messaging for them. I think he wants to hold them accountable, like Tom said. And I think maybe that was a shock to Cormani McClain. I think maybe he thought, oh, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to, we're going to be splashy and we're going to be able to talk trash and we're going to have everybody, we're going to get paid and it's just going to be easy. And I think Deion does try to, coach him hard. And I think that's why it didn't work. I mean, speaking of the red flags were early when he wasn't starting, when Deion calls him out to the media and says he's got to go to class, he's got to study the playbook, he's got to get in shape. Like those were the red flags that said, this is a young player who doesn't get it. And like Bud said, I don't know if he ever does get it. Like this could be a wake-up call, but it depends on what other team lets him in and what, do they continue to hold him accountable or do they let him walk all over him?
The one thing I will question, because I don't know, but it does make me wonder, is when you are so transfer portal heavy and the team is so old, do you have the right processes in place to help young players who are straight out of high school acclimate to your program? Because everybody who's already played college football somewhere else understands like the bare minimum you got to do. Because if you're eligible, you probably were doing the bare minimum and you have to be eligible to transfer. So I don't know, like a lot of these freshmen, they need their hands held. Some of these guys come to campus. Like I know guys that run like, campus life, professional development, life development for a lot of these big Power 5 programs. These kids come to campus like without an ID, right? Like they just basic stuff that I think people from a lot of backgrounds have, and they don't have them. Like there's a lot of like life stuff that you really need some hand holding for certain kids when they get on campus. And I don't know if Colorado has that set up because your transfers, they have that kind of stuff. Like they've lived as an adult for at least a year or two in almost all cases.
Danny, I'm glad you provided that context because I was just thinking there was a question in the tailgate, what doesn't Deion's style attract that kind of personality? And I was thinking that Deion's style is being molded by Bobby Bowden and Mickey Andrews.
Right.
Right. Like that is a hard line. Like this is it. Like this is the standard. This is the way you practice. This is the way you take care of your business. And that's what I've sensed in terms of him as a coach. And I'm glad you're able to identify that because it's not going to be the same thing as the social media presence when you show up in practice, I would think for Deion.
I mean, there was a quote from an assistant coach earlier that said Cormani had just started practicing and he said he'll get more reps once he gets in shape. This was spring practice. I just saw this quote a week ago. I'm like, you're supposed to be in the best shape of the season. And like, cause you've already gone through winter workouts. Like you don't come in spring football to get in shape. Like it was weird. So,
I mean, but some freshmen do, like even highly rated ones do. Like Hakeem Williams last year really struggled with workouts when he first got to FSU.
Mm-hmm.
By Halloween, when Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman got hurt, he's making like important catches for them when they're trailing against Duke on third down. So, but like again, certain programs have their like high school acclimation stuff figured out, and Colorado takes almost no high school players, so I don't know what their high school acclimation program looks like. Maybe it's awesome.
Also, in the Midwest, we totally use the spring to get back in shape because we don't do crap over the winter, Danny.